Still concerns about the conflict in the Tigray region of Ethiopia. Closer to home, the Southern African Development Community is still deciding on how to deal with the conflict and the insurgency in the Cabo Delgado region of Mozambique. We've seen people, including South Africans, being displaced there after an insurgency in which a militia group's been able to take over a town in that region. We speak now to Professor Mamo Muchi, a Pan-African scholar, analyst and research professor at the Tshwane University of Technology. Professor Muchi, good afternoon to you. I mean, obviously, every single conflict situation is different, but are there certain elements that we see in common, certain things that will lead to a conflict like the one we see in Tigray, like the one we see in Cabo Delgado?
There is a shared problem in the conflict area. There's no doubt about. You see, why are we always in conflict? Because we don't value our values. Rich values we have, spiritual values we have, also knowledge we have. But what do we go? We go for ethnicity, for religion, for differences, you see? I mean, how can we do that? For example, the conflict you see in Mozambique now, even in Ethiopia, there is now what is called Islamic extremism. You know, all this Al-Qaeda, Al-Shabaab, Boko Haram, all of them were told, I mean, that they are now organizing and then targeting, selecting certain countries as targets. And at the same time, of course, internally also what they do is when they get in, there are people who have conflicts because of economic and other, relationships, like difficulties, ethnic relationships based on really more than anything else. It's just the land, the minerals, and everything that are there. Who should share it? Who should have it? So we have this kind of really complicated situations. And of course, external actors also come and they interfere. How do they interfere? They also are interested in with which group they should be. And if they see more conflicts, then they get advantage. This is what's happening in the DRC Congo. It's still conflict. So many minerals that country has. Over 24 trillion is worth all the minerals they have. And what happens? Foreign elements are still active. And what happens? All the ethnic groups that are divided, historically, the division has been done to ethnically divide families even. And then what happens? There are some in Uganda who are similar to the DRC. There are some in Rwanda. All of them, there's conflicts going on. And then you have this situation. Similar things happening in all these SADC areas. All the people. I mean, you have people in South Africa from Lesotho. What don't you have? I mean, you all have them here.
So, Professor, I mean, in Tigray, there's a regional dimension, right? People are angry at the central government. The central government's angry at people in Tigray. In Mozambique, there's a similarity. People there are angry at the central government. They feel they've been left behind by the central government. And what I'm talking about then is poor governance, but also a lack of state capacity. In other words, the people living in the capital, they might be the president, they might be in charge, they might have taken an oath, but they don't actually have the capacity to improve the lives of people across their country, and that's what leads to this.
You're completely right. What you have is the situation we have, at least in the Ethiopian case, what we have is an ethnic federal arrangement. Ethnic federalism means that people have the right to own a certain area based on the language they speak. You divide them linguistically. Can you imagine? And if you do that, what then happens is, if you say, for example, a group that does not speak the language you are speaking in an area where you are running that region, and you say that you are like almost a foreigner, then what you have done is divided the country has been divided. This has been going on for many, almost 30 years. And now the new regime says they want to change it, but they are not able to change it because the constitution is still the same. The whole arrangement is the same. The regional principle of based on language is still there. And then what happens is instead of using values and other means and even other ways by which you can keep the people together, based on their human rights, on social solidarity, social justice for the people as a whole. Instead of that, what you have is a dangerous classification where you make some foreigners in a certain region and others are citizens. If you do something like that, always there will be conflict, there will be war. There will be no way by which you could bring in a peaceful environment. What has happened now is the TPLF, the Tigrayan People's Liberation Front, that created this system, this arrangement, this regional based on language. Now, the new one has not changed it. What has happened now is in the area called Oromo, where the new prime minister is also the chairman of the party called the Oromo Prosperity Party. They also want similar things. They still want a regional based on their own language, in the same way that the Tigrayan People's Liberation Front want to do it. So they say they want to dominate. How do they do it now? Mm-hmm. In the area where other people live in other language speakers, like Amharic speakers, live in a place called Warlega, in other places called Benishangul, and Matakal, and many places like that. You will not believe how many people have been murdered. And not only just murdered, sure, murdered in a very, very strange way. The same thing happened also in the area near Addis Ababa, called Ataye. In that area, the entire city was demolished. And even they did it in a time when there was Easter Day, on the last Sunday, was the Ethiopian calendar. It was Easter Day, when people were told were under attack. So this is the situation happening. As you rightly put it, they are not capable. They are not addressing the main issue. The main issue now is how do we create rule of law? How do we make sure that ordinary people who have nothing to do with this politics, who are just the politics is imposed on them, they don't have anything to do with it. I mean, if the government people are really sincere, they should have a referendum to say, do they want the ethnic system, or do they want to be they respect their human rights, the values of human rights.
Professor, I'm going to pick up on that point about referendum, but in a very strange way. So if we look at the borders in Africa, and you look at what happened in the Berlin Conference in 1885, 86, I forget which it was, I think it was both years.
84, 85.
84, 85, thank you. And I mean, you spoke about outsiders, and I mean, colonizers is also perhaps a better word. But I mean, the borders that we have in Africa largely come from the Berlin Conference. At the same time, I'm reminded, and I forget the date, you'll have to help me, the Organization of African Unity, when it was created, I think one of the first decisions they took, if I've remembered correctly, was all of the leaders said, we're not going to change Africa's borders. Now, why did they say that? They might have said that because it would have been against their own interests. They've all got to be presidents of their country or prime ministers or whatever it was. They weren't going to give up any of that power. Now, you talk about a referendum. If we had to have referendums around different countries across our continent to say, do you want to stay in this country? Do you want to move? It would uncork something. It would lead, I think, to a lot more conflict, a lot more contestation, a lot more anger, and a lot more frustration. So, in a way, how do we stop all of that? And I'm reminded, as I ask you this very long question, about the European Union and how they've tried to sort of almost remove borders and resolve these problems in that way.
Yeah, no, a very good reflection from your side. What I was saying was, to be honest with you, in a country like we have, Ethiopia, it's a long history, a long memory. And it's also a country that has remained independent for many, many thousands of years. So the history is very strong. The knowledge heritage is very strong. The spiritual heritage is very strong. The struggle heritage is very strong. If there is only, in the referendum, there are only two issues. One, are you Ethiopians? Do you respect yourselves, the human rights, as citizens of Ethiopians? Do you value Ethiopia? And then that's one. Then the other is, Do you value your own ethnic group, your own language? Do you want to say, I don't want to be with Ethiopia? I think, to be honest with you, if there's a referendum and a vote just on this, it doesn't matter. Those who oppose may say whatever negative things they want to say. All these ethnic politicians. I mean, whatever messages they pass. My impression is the majority of the people, I really think would go for this. And I think if this happens, it will create a very good condition to continue to say we cannot go on with this ethnic federal arrangement. In the same way you did go. Look at South Africa. You had an apartheid system, a Bantustan system. What did you do? You took your time, you did a reconciliation, and then you created one of the best constitutions in the world. You know, you now say, we, the people of South Africa. In Ethiopia, they say, we, the nations, nationalities, and peoples. They divide themselves when they start. At least you went through something. It's a lesson many people can draw from South Africa, too. The key thing your challenge now is to make this happen, so that if you become very successful, and you become like make South Africa like the United Nations that can survive, that all of you can work together, can support each other, and not really go racially or ethnically. Trust me, the sky is the limit. You can be a great model and a great support, provide a great lesson, a great inspiration for the whole of Africa. I think we need something like that. I do not like this ethnic divided Africa. The colonial powers did it deliberately. They divided families. No, sincerely. This also happened in Ethiopia. The Eritrea and Ethiopia were divided. You know what happened? When the British, after the 1935 war, the Italians came to attack Ethiopia. The British, the Emperor of Ethiopia was in Britain. When he came, the British were with him. What did the British say? When the Italians left Eritrea, they say, we take over. But the emperor said to them, why don't we take it over? They are Ethiopians. Why don't, you know what they said? If you continue to say things like that, we'll arrest you. We were told that the emperor was in tears. Sure. I mean, that is what has happened to us. So the colonial powers were not really, what they left on Africa is dangerous. It's still, we haven't removed it. Kwame Nkrumah in 1960 said, Africa must unite or perish. He argued very strongly. But then other people like Molumu Nyerere and others said, we can't quickly do it. But then what happened? Tell me what happened. All the wars, all the coups d'etats, all the civil wars, all of them, how many? Hundreds of them were done in Africa. We haven't stopped it.
Professor,
it's continuing.
Professor,
that's what has... Yes.
Yeah. Professor, I'm afraid we have to leave it there, but it's really fascinating. We're going to have this conversation on a longer basis, really we are. Professor Mama Muchi, thank you very much indeed. Pan-African scholar, analyst, research professor, Tshwane University of Technology. It's an